Hi, welcome to another edition of In the Clubhouse. I'm your host, Bob Busser, and my partner is Rick.
How you doing? Glad to be back
There
here
he
again,
is.
Bob.
And today we're going to do something a little different. We usually talk sports, but my second passion, which may be even better than sports, is music. I've been an audiophile since I was a little kid, the British invasion on up. And about 30 years ago, I got into jazz. And I found this guy on YouTube with his song Pacific Coast Highway. And I thought, wow, this guy's the shit. This guy hits good. And he and I became friends. I actually shot one of his CD covers. And I want to introduce you now to a great jazz guitarist, Nils. Nils, welcome to the show.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on.
Oh, and it's always good to talk to you, buddy. Tell us about your new CD.
Well, my new CD, I'm just wearing it right here so everybody can see. I can advertise while we talk, right? Um, New album's called Feeling Good, just came out last Friday, and it's my 13th album.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's getting there. Um, and yeah, I'm really excited about this one. You know, like sometimes you have a feeling about some CDs you're not sure. This one I feel really good about, even though it's always, it's hard to be objective about your own music, but so far all the responses we got too are very, very positive. So I'm very excited about it. It's 12 songs on it, one cover. It's an Earth, Wind, Fire song. That's The Way of the World.
Sounded
And,
fantastic too.
actually currently working on finishing up the music video for that one. And yeah, I'll just hope it does as well as the last two records. The album that you shot the cover on was Album of the Year, and it was Airplay Artist of that year. And the next CD as well. So I'm kind of like setting up a standard that I need to upkeep,
Yeah, well, you know what, Nils, you have a way of getting the right hook in a song, and
Thank you.
like
Yeah.
Pacific Coast Highway, that is obviously what got you on the map for most people. And if you
Right.
haven't heard it, go on YouTube and check it out. It's a great feel-good song. It's you want to put your top down and just go buzzing up the PCH up to Santa Barbara or Monterey or whatever you want to do. And that's what his music is. It's very upbeat. I've enjoyed him for years. Nils,
Mhm.
tell us about your band that's recorded with you.
Well, as I said, I have my longtime members are Clydeen and Oliver, Clydeen Jackson, and Oliver Brown. I met them maybe 20 years ago when I produced the record for them. They had their own little band, and we gelled musically so much that I asked them to join my band as well, and we've been together ever since. Oliver's background is he's a percussionist from the Bay Area. He played originally with, he was original member of Casey and the Sunshine Band. And then he performed with Leo Sawyer, um, Meg Fleetwood, and a lot of other stars over the years. And he's just a wonderful showman. I love him. Even on my set, I put the percussion up front because he's so much fun to watch. He's like a eye candy, so to speak, the way he moves and does all these things. And Clydeen is just a one of a kind singer. She plays keyboards and sings. But her voice is really like on what she can do in vocals is just incredible. She does a lot of the movie scores here in LA, all the big movies, Avatar, The Lion King, you name it, she's on it, on the soundtrack. Avatar, for instance, was on all these big choirs you hear, these Navi choirs, only two girls. It's Clydeen and her colleague, by overdubbing over and over, created all these choirs for Hans Zimmer. So she can sing anything. I mean, and she's so much in demand for that that's the main thing she does other than playing with my band. Then rhythm section, I've been going through that's bass and drums. I've been interchanging individual players. Lately, I settled for two brothers, Corey Mason and Aaron Mason. And they worked out really well. Corey played for me maybe 15 years ago when he subbed for Ricky Lawson on a gig, and that's where I met him. And I always wanted to work. I used him on some live shows off and on, but I always wanted to work with him on an album. And finally, this time, I got the opportunity to actually get him. And I needed a new bass player because Darryl Williams, which is a guy that I like and I used a lot of my recordings, he's been out on the road with Jonathan Butler all the time now, so he wasn't available. And his brother is just a wonderful bass player that I never knew, and the two together, they just lock very well, you know. So having a brother team and bass and drums works out really good.
Is it Jonathan Butler, the South African?
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
good. He is
yeah,
really
yeah.
good. Nils, who do you listen to when you're not listening to your music, I guess? Who inspires you jazz wise or rock and roll wise? Because you know, jazz and rock kind of blend together.
Yeah, I mean, my musical background goes from you know, from rock, I was a big Toto fan. Steve Lukather is one of my heroes. My first love was Richie Blackmore from Rainbow, Deep Purple. That was the very first concert I saw, so my back started there. And then I got into jazz more through guys like Larry Carlton
Mhm.
and Robin Ford, who have some bluesy jazz influence. Then another big influence of mine on playing style was Jeff Beck.
Oh yeah.
Um, I wasn't that big of a fan of his music. I mean, there's some songs I really love, but on the whole, what I most admire about him, what he does on the instruments, the way the tones he gets out of the guitar, and what he does is just like mind blowing, you know. So I saw him once live and I had prime seat like 6 feet or 10 feet away from him, right in front of him, and I saw him the whole show. And that was the last time I dropped my jaw and couldn't close it for an hour.
Was this
Nils,
Go
Nils, I
ahead,
wanted to
man.
ask you, you know, you talked about your influences there, but your first album came out in, I think it was 1998, and that's, you know, over a quarter century ago. How do you feel that
Right.
your music has evolved during that time?
Uh, yeah, I mean, the first album, especially, that was Blue Planet that you're referring to. That was, I didn't produce that myself. I had a producer, and he took me from, at that time, I was into fusion. You know, I was influenced. I just came out of GIT, the guitar school and the music school. I went to two schools in Los Angeles that brought me to the States. GIT, Musicians Institute, and then Dick Grove to study composition. So at that school, you know, the technical stuff was so a big influence. I hung out with guys like Scott Henderson and Frank Gambale, who played with Chick Corea. So I was into this more technical guitar playing stuff, but I also, from a writing point, wrote good melodies. And the producer kind of steered me away from the more aggressive technical stuff into the more commercial music that is easier to market to an audience, you know,
Mhm.
other than just to guitar players.
Mhm.
And that was my first record, and it was kind of like a mix out of that, you know. He took like the best songs that had like a crossover fusion, what today's no juice met, and he introduced me to a whole nother class of musicians, because when at that time I was playing little hole in the wall clubs in Los Angeles, and he put a band together called Nils and the West Coast All Stars, which had where I was the only unknown player. It had like Phil Perry, Carl Anderson, who sings Jesus Christ Superstar, Ricky Lawson, the drummer from Eric Clapton and Michael Jackson, players on that level in my band, and
Mhm.
playing my music, and that kind of really elevated me. And then the next record was quite a while later, 2005, and that's really where that song Pacific Coast Highway put me on the map, because it became today the most played song on in smooth jazz,
Mhm.
period. And that kind of brought my career up threw me in that kind of genre.
Mhm.
And yeah, and with each record, I think I'm getting better as a producer. I got better as a mixer. Like the first record I had to hire engineers to mix my record. And over the years, halfway, probably by the fifth or sixth album, I think City Groove was the first album where I really started mixing most of my own music, you know, and I acquired a big enough studio with equipment and the nice speakers and everything, and the technical know-how how to actually mix myself. So I became more self-efficient. Yeah, I'm just striving to, you know, to better myself with each album. I think my albums are getting better from a sonic point, from a playing point, and from a writing point. But you know, I'm always scared. I'm listening to some of my past records and saying, "Oh, these are damn good." I better keep up with myself there, you know.
Nils, this when you're playing with others, you know, you mentioned that the people with Michael Jackson's people and things like that. Does that make you a better? Do you think it makes you a better guitarist when you're working with these guys that are just like at the top of their game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. There was a steep learning curve that was really quick. It's kind of like I've the feeling was like you're driving a moped all your life, and so somebody hands you a 1000cc Kawasaki, you know, and when the band takes off, it's just like whoa. It's a whole nother thing. Yeah, it made me definitely a better player. I mean, uh, I kind of makes you pay more attention of how you play. It has more room. You see how these interact. You learn by being around great musician, and it's definitely, to me, it made a huge difference. I think I really advanced tremendously since I played with players on a higher level.
You mentioned the cover that you did for this new album. I think it's
Yeah,
Way of the World, what you mentioned about Earth, Wind, and Fire.
yeah.
And what made you choose that song? What was that? What really stood out for you about that song?
You know, it took me a long time to do an Earth, Wind, Fire cover. This is my 13th album, and
Mhm.
Earth, Wind, Fire is one of my favorite bands. It's kind of the
Okay.
music that I really like. And if I was to describe my music, it would be instrumental versions of Earth, Wind, Fire music, kind of like that
Hmm.
general genre. You know, you get an idea of what my
Yeah.
music sounds like. Um, but I'd never attempted one because I always thought, to me, there's no way to make that better, you know, or at least make it as good, you know. It's always going to be like a cheaper version or not as good version of an Earth and Fire song. So I never attempted one.
Mhm.
But last year I was in Munich, Germany, taking care of my mom, and I hung out with an old friend of mine in his basement, and we jammed in his basement. He put up some YouTube stuff on his iPad, and was a live version of That's the Way of the World of Earth, Wind, Fire. And we played along with it. And I said, man, that feels great to play on the guitar, you know? So, I mean, it felt so good that I said, well, let me try that song. So, and that's what made
It
me do
definitely didn't
that.
sound like a cheaper version to me. So
Yeah, it definitely, and it came out great, you know, so I'm really happy
yeah,
because
it really did.
now always when I do a record of 12 songs, I usually record at least 15, because you
Yeah.
start with 15, and 1 and 2, as you move along through the production process, they might not turn out as good as you would hope to. Um, you know, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm not sure about that one. So you kind of drop them off, and you make sure you end up with 12 good ones. And yeah, but this one came out absolutely, you know, that's why the record label chose it as the first single too.
When you
Hmm.
um released I'm going to go back to PCH for a second.
Mhm.
When you did you know when you recorded that you're like, shit, I got something here, this has got a good groove to it, it's got a great hook? Did you realize that, or did it just kind of blow your mind that, wow, it's all people are eating this stuff up, they love it?
Yeah. No, I knew I had a good song. I definitely knew that, yeah, this is kind of like this hitting the mark. That it was that big, I could not have predicted, and I had no reference for one, and you know, it's like I just feel myself blessed and lucky that it became that huge of a song, you know. And to this day, if I look at my royalty statements, it's become a classic. It's still maybe short of the current single, usually my biggest post on my royalty statements, you know. So it keeps being played, and I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, that's usually the one you close with on your shows because you know it's like
Yeah,
you say something like you all know this when you start with the opening riff and you
yeah,
know, everybody is singing, not singing along, but clapping and getting into
yeah,
it. You know, it's just like I said, his music is kind of funky a little bit, you know, a little maybe jazz fusion, but it's feel good stuff. And I love the funk in some of
right.
his stuff, like Detroit Strut. It's got that funky little hook to it.
Yeah, it's you know, I like to be to feel the music rather than think music. You know, like a lot of times in Europe they have that issue with smooth jazz, it's called here. I don't like that label myself. Contemporary jazz might be better, but it's really instrumental R&B. What I grew up in the 70s to listen to is R&B music from the 70s, 80s, instrumental. That would be the best description. Because the jazz is very little. Yeah, there's improvisation on it and it's instrumental music. And maybe there's a couple changes in there, but it's nothing to do with bebop or traditional jazz music in that sense. So I always feel a fraud when I say I'm a jazz musician. To me, that Wynton Marsalis, Miles Davis, those are jazz musicians. You know? I'm a rock guitar player who learned too much, I say, you know.
You're like
Uh,
Craig Chaquiso, you know, the guy who's with the Jefferson Starship. Now he's
yeah,
yes, yeah. So
and but it's more like it's danceable, you know, and you can feel it. That's what I want. It's there's soul, there's blues, there's funk in it, and those are the elements that are important to me.
well, you turned my wife on to jazz. She's not a well, you know, contemporary jazz, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
She really wasn't a big jazz person, but when every time, you know, when's Nils coming? When's Nils coming? She wants to go see you because she really enjoys it. And it's, you know, it's just a fun show, you know.
yeah.
You know, he just gets out there and plays and he's great interaction with the audience.
Yeah. Now and then and just to finish my previous thought, in Europe, the problem with the label smooth jazz is that the people who like jazz listen to it and say, "Oh, this isn't jazz," you know, and the people who don't like jazz, who would like the music, they're turned off because there's jazz in the label. So some of the festivals over there are labeled as jazz funk soul festival, you know, to get more people into it. And maybe that's a better description for it, you know.
Um, Nils, you are starting a production company now with where you're taking like a summer tour thing.
I'm starting a concert series, a Nils
Yes,
Smooth Jazz concert
yes,
series. Yeah.
yes.
And and the first one is gonna be on June 8th at Rancho Cucamonga at the Epic Event Center. The idea there, that was my new agent come up with this concept, and basically I'm the host introducing my other artists, you know. So the first one is going to be Jeanette Harris, wonderful sax player, also from Northern California. And she is, and I'm gonna be hosting the show. So I'm gonna open the show playing a couple songs, and then, but it's really then her show.
Are you going to sit in with her?
Huh?
Are you going to sit in with her on the
You
number?
know, I still have to figure that out. I want her to sit in with me on one song, maybe after the show, maybe do to Pacific Coast Highway at the end together or something like that. Um, and we're still coming up with what the actual run of the concept is. But we probably have Brian Simpson then in October, and we're trying to bring this to different markets just to get my face out of there and on a more permanent basis, because it's been hard to break into the festival circus. All the success I had on radio, and I'm one of the most played artists in. I mean, I was Airplay Artist of the Year 2021 from Billboard and 2023 in smooth jazz. That means my music is played more than any other artist that year in that genre. But I can't get on the big festivals. because that market is cornered by the big agents, and they, if you want our prime act, our headliner, then you're gonna have to get my other acts too, and the festival is booked before you know it, you know. So it's been very hard to break in there with a few exceptions, and so we trying to create other ways around it to get me out there, to get basically, I did this, what really was helpful during COVID. I started doing a series, Nils Live from Home, where I do a Facebook live show every Saturday. So that's it. My Facebook channel is Nils Guitar, Nils Guitar, one word. And every Saturday at 6 p.m., I do like a 45-minute show from my home, in my home studio right here. And I perform songs from my set, and people can do requests. And it's been a good driver of creating a solid audience base for myself. So now when I play clubs and stuff like that, it becomes more, it's easier for me to fill the room. People want to come out and say hi, and I saw you at, I saw your live show, and I really wanted to see you in person and do it with a band and all that kind of stuff. So these things kind of, as an artist, you got to be self-promoting. Like half of the job is not really just the music, it's more like all the promotional stuff and creating your brand, so to speak.
You talked about the markets there. What cities and what venues are your favorite places to play? It really turned out, people have turned out really well there.
Well, obviously Los Angeles is the big market for me, because that's where I live and I have the most presence. But we've done in the past, we've done a lot of great shows in Atlanta. I've done great shows in Florida as well. Charlotte, North Carolina, I've been several times too. That market been very good to me. And then everything else, like I've been there once, but I want to keep doing it every year, Yeah.
Well, Nils, it sounds like with your your concert series that you're hosting, sounds like you could be your own start your own festivals and things like that.
That's the idea. Basically, they want to let us in while we create our own thing, and it's like my attitude is you don't wait for the opportunities, you start creating your own opportunities.
Absolutely.
That's what you have to do. It's like you're a self-employed artist, and as I said, the music part is half of it. The other part is all the other stuff around it. So promoting and creating opportunities,
Let me ask you this. I've never asked you this question. Give me your top 3 songs that you've done, your music. What's your top 3?
Well, my music, well, Pacific Coast Highway for sure. I like Catnap.
Yeah.
And God, then it's really tough. It's like choosing your child. What's your favorite child, right? and it changes. I go fun of my show. The way I'm laying it out is I'm using backing tracks when I do my show here at home, and I put all my songs. It's been like 150 songs in there.
Wow.
That I can basically choose, and then I get requests like, oh God, I forgot about that song. It's still not in there. I have to add on to it and relearn these songs that I hadn't played in 20 some years, But I love the challenge because there's some tracks in there that I totally forgot about, and I like playing, and then I'm like, okay, I'm grown past that so far, but it's a flexible thing, Obviously, the songs that were big hits, they're always special to me because they made me money and made me able to do my thing,
Hey, you're
But then there's
honest.
other songs that didn't, that I thought were fantastic and didn't do that well, but I love playing, Call of the Sirens is another track that it's one that I used my Jeff Beck influence on. The way he played the guitar with the volume and the whammy bar, I use a lot of technique in that song, you know, and there was a certain direct influence of Jeff Beck's playing in it. It's a ballad, so you can have your time and you really play with the sound and the tone of the guitar. So for that reason, I love playing that one, you know.
Go ahead, Rick, you had something?
I I was just wondering, you know, you've got other smooth jazz, contemporary jazz, R&B groups out there as well. You know, what makes you different? I mean, I've known Foreplay for a long time, and you have a sound that's similar to Foreplay and all. But what makes you different than the other groups out there?
Well, what makes me different? Well, there are certain differentiations. I'm a guitar player. A lot of bands are headed by sax players, right? So it's a little slightly different instrument. But my music, as I said, is usually very danceable. You know, it's party music.
Okay.
Always say, bring your dancing shoes when you come to my show, and I usually get them up and dancing to it. It's Foreplay's music, for instance, is way more laid back than my stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I got really, this is like if you go into a funk concert, that would be closer to what I do. But we're the same, just like some pleasant changes, you know, and I always try to put a show together where the whole shore, like a whole shore, has a certain contour.
Sure.
We kind of bring it up to, say, yeah, end with Pacific Coast Highway, the biggest hit, and obviously you build up to that climax and that kind of stuff. And so it's really hard to say what makes me different. I mean, my music makes me different, right? My music is my music.
Yeah.
And that's my sound, you know.
I think you should, I don't know if you can do this or not, but Cruisin' to me is one of your best songs. I think you should
Cruisin',
release it
yeah.
as a single. That it's got that feel-good thing. You pop it on your iPod or whatever in your car and you take the top down and away you go. It's just a great feel-good song and it's got a great hook to it.
Yeah. That song is from that very first album that we talked about. That was the song that producer said you should do more songs like that. You know, and that was a massive production, Cruisin'. We had Saida Garrett on it and Shanti Moore. That was still recorded on 2-inch tape before computers.
Wow.
And I remember we had to, Saida Garrett did 24 tracks of background vocals. Now on the 2-inch tape, the big studio tape, you only get 24 tracks on it. So once that is full, you play that over to another tape machine, and then you have to basically mix it down the stereo and bounce it back. And we had to start both machines at the same time so it would come back at the right place. And you make a little marker on the tape with a grease marker. So it's like, okay, this time it was a little bit too late. Let's move it like a half an inch over here and until it perfectly fits in the pocket. These days it's done, everything done on computer. It's so easily to move stuff around. But in those days, there was still old studio techniques used and cutting and splicing up tape and all that stuff. I'm kind of happy that I grew up in that time and really learned about production and studio recording in the days where we still were working with tape mostly. Because some of these techniques and understanding help me even today when we work with computers most of the time.
Rick,
How
go ahead.
how often are you on the road during a year? I mean, are you spending average of 4 months on the road during the year, or more than that?
I wish, no. Well, most of my shows are what I call spot dates.
Okay.
I might have a little tour maybe for 4 or 5 days where we were stringing like 3 dates together. And then I'm back home, or I fly out to one festival, to one gig, and then fly back.
Okay.
You know, that's then a weekend. So I'm doing maybe 2 shows a month, yeah, which is great. And as I'm saying, I try to up that part of it. I compensate for it by doing production work at home. I produce music for other artists in my studio. So I'm constantly working in the studio and working at home. And I enjoy doing that. It's easy. It's my house. I don't have to commute. The studio is in the other room. I get my coffee here, and I'm ready to work. But I do also like performing live and balancing that out. So yeah, I'm trying to create more and more opportunities to really go out on the road live. But it gets tiresome. It's like I did earlier this year. I did the East Coast tour that was 5 days.
Mhm.
And I can see that gets tiresome very quickly. After 5 days, I was glad to be home. Like going from one hotel room to the other and check in
Right.
and check out. I have to get a rental car, drive to another gig, catch an airplane, fly into the city, and um, and then you're sitting around in a hotel room for half a day, nothing to do. So it's not all the gig itself is a lot of fun, at night. The thing in between is more bothersome, until
I,
you
ima-
get, yeah.
I imagine that nothing beats the rush of the crowd and the feedback you get from that crowd.
Yeah, I'm always looking forward for that,
Yeah.
So ideally I like to have a nice balance of
Mhm.
being home in the studio because I love playing with my toys. And being out on the road,
Yeah.
so that it's the yin and the yang, and the goal is to create a nice balance between the two of them.
Rick, Nils, Rick, Nils, what does your daughter think of your work? Does she like your music? And what's her name, by the way? We'll give her a plug.
Oh, her name is Maddie. And yeah, she loves my music. At least she says so, I haven't really noticed it on her iPhone or player. But like it's a different generation. And they grow up with hip hop and EDM music.
Mhm.
That's
So I'm not necessarily in her, but she can appreciate, like the groove part of my stuff. And she did a cameo in one of my music videos. I usually do try to when I do a music video, get some cameo footage from my fans to dance along or do something, and I cut that into the video. I'm enjoying doing that, and the fans having a lot of fun. And she did a cameo appearance in one of them.
wow, she's a star now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my dad. He plays good. I saw this picture on online, and it was with David Gilmour, and his daughter has this look on her face. She's holding in the guitar, and the caption is, "Yeah, it sucks because my dad's when you're trying just to play the guitar, and my dad's the guy from Pink Floyd. It's just for me, Gilmore is brilliant. He's one of the best guitarists
Yeah.
ever because
Mhm.
he's like you. He's just not running up and down the neck, like Eddie Van Halen, hammering on everything. And he's got fluidity, just like you. There's fluidity to his music, and yours, it just flows. Um, I
Yeah,
can't.
I love. I
I
mean, I
really do
think
it.
to me, Dark Side of the Moon is my all-time favorite. I think it's the best record done ever.
I
I mean, best produced record. I mean, I can put that on today. It sounds so alive, so today. This from sonic and musically interesting. It didn't age.
No, it
All
did
the other
not.
records I put on from the 70s, 80s, that when I started really getting into music,
Mhm.
they kind of sound old now, but that record is just unbelievable. And yeah, he has that soulful thing about the guitar that I like. That's what I like about the guitar as an instrument. It's very um expressive, how soulful you can be with the way you bend notes, the way you approach, you slide into a tone, the tone you get out of the instrument too, how it reacts with your playing. It's just fun.
I heard an interview with Alan Parsons who did he was in charge of the
You produce
clocks
that record.
on time, and he goes, I had a hell of a time trying to coordinate the clocks to go off at the same time, but he got it right, and he goes, I don't want to do that again. You know, you
And
push
that
it.
was done way before computers, right? These days, you get a
Absolutely.
sample and you can just line it up visually. Those days, it all had to be happening in real time. So I can only imagine that challenge there.
Well, you also mentioned Richie Blackmore, and
Uh,
they did, they did a song by they did a retake of "It's a Beautiful Day," Bombay Calling, and they made
mhm.
it into Child in Time. And if you listen to that, and I will tell people right now, if you listen to music, please plug it into your computer or whatever and put headphones on. You're going to hear more sounds than you can ever think about that you can't hear through a regular speaker, and it'll
Mm.
blow you away on some of the stuff you hear. It's genius. The overlaying, like you said, of guitars or some sax parts you might not hear. It's really good. And
Yeah,
Child in Time is kind of like that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I grew up with that stuff. That was my first guitar hero, and my very first band that I saw live. I was 16 years old. Was Richie Blackmore, it's Rainbow, and the opening band was an unknown band from Australia called AC/DC.
Did you go
And
deaf after
that
that
concert
show?
was just incredible.
Did
I
you did
said,
you go
every opening act that good.
did you go deaf after that show? Because that's a loud gig.
No, no. But it's like as a young kid, you have maybe another tolerance. I don't know.
Oh yeah. You think back of the stuff we did when we were, we're all roughly in the same age genre. You just look back and go, Jesus Christ, how did I survive that? I mean, it's the chemicals we may have ingested
Yeah,
at a gig, and you're like flying high, but you know what? We survived, and
yeah.
it was a lot of fun. As you can
Yeah.
see back here, Nils, I've got my little mini guitar studio and drum
Your
studio.
collection, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I need one of Nils' guitars back there,
I've got
So,
a I've got a case for you.
oh, there you go. Your red guitar that you always is that the do you use? I noticed you got a Gibson now. Do you play the Gibson too, along with your standard guitar you use?
For local gigs, because I don't want to travel with two guitarists. I like the Les. Always wanted to get a Les Paul. This is my latest one, and because it's very very different from the Valley Arts. And this is my main guitar right here. I got two of these babies. It's shaped different like a Fender, but it's a very different guitar than a Fender Stratocaster. It has active tone thing. It's custom made, and you can see this baby has been played. I got it in '85, and I probably played it every day since, and taken it everywhere, all over the world. And it's just like, as perfection goes, probably the most perfect instrument I ever played.
Really?
Um, and yeah, so there's certain tricks I can do on this guitar, like the Jeff Beck stuff that is that you can't do that on a Les Paul because it doesn't have a whammy bar. You can't reach, I reach down to the volume and manipulate it with my pinky as I'm playing. And on the Les Paul, they're too far apart. You can't reach it. So some of these things that I'm used to doing, I cannot do in the Les Paul. And the Les Paul is it's a shorter scale. The notes are closer together, so it's really nice for runs and stuff. It just plays very different. You got to play it really softly, while this guy here, you got to really dig in. And the challenge to me was to learn how to play the other guitar, from a touch point of view. And but I like the tone of it. I like what it's also a beautiful guitar. So I on the new album I did probably half and half on the Les Paul, half on the Valley Arts. Then live, since there's some things I cannot do on the Les Paul that I like to do, I usually use this guitar. Unless I can bring both, and then I might have the other one as a for certain songs up there.
Rick, you have any other questions for Nils?
You know, I played piano growing up. I was I always felt my fingers were too fat for guitar. I was kind of interested, but I could never get the feel of a guitar very well. I felt I was
Uh-huh.
better suited for piano, and I just find it amazing. I could never play by ear. I could only play when I had sheet music in front of me. I could play that, and I could do it
Uh-huh.
pretty well by sight. But playing by ear and just playing what you want to do, being able to put those notes together. I just amazed, at people that can do that and pull that off.
Yeah, to me that came during my second year in Los Angeles.
Mhm.
I came here first, as I said, to study, and that was in '85,
Mhm.
to study at the Musicians at Guitar Institute, all about guitar playing and stuff like that. And then after that, I went to the Grove School of Music to study composition and arrangement.
Mhm.
And at that school, I had a consultation with Dick himself, because as I have an issue, I don't get to play enough. Everything is based, my whole personality was based on playing guitar, and at that school it was like, no, arranging, just listening, figuring out chords. I had to learn piano a little bit,
Mhm.
and I didn't get to play guitar at all for a year.
Wow.
And he said, well, you might lose your chops, but you can get them back in a couple of months practice. What you learn here, you can't get any other way. And when I picked up the guitar, all of a sudden, I could hear what I'm playing before I played it. So that year kind of connected my ear to my ability. And these days, yeah, I can, it's fun when I'm with somebody else on stage, we're doing a back and forth and they play something, and I can repeat that melody, or I can hear melody in my head and know instantly my fingers know where to go and play it.
Wow.
And that
That's
kind of came
amazing.
during that year, and I don't know how it happened, but it was more like, after so many years, it finally got together.
Mhm. Wow.
Yeah,
Nils, this has been a lot of fun. I wish you much success with the new
thank
CD.
you.
Feeling good. I've got to get me a copy and listen to it. I've listened to it on YouTube, but I got to get it put on the iPad. So, we'll have you on again when you have another CD, probably next year. Because I know you've got stuff in the can, right? You've got a lot of songs that you haven't released yet that you probably could throw in another CD, right?
I have other songs, but I haven't started really. It's funny, yeah. I started this CD right after my previous one came out, just putting ideas together. So it's about this time that I'm gonna start thinking about the next music, even though I'm still just promoting this record. But I've been so busy with this one, with the promotional aspect. We have a CD release party on the 23rd in Hollywood. I'm playing at Catalina, and then I have some gigs coming up, and I need to put out the new arrangements for the live show for the band, and so I'm still busy with the promotional and getting this stuff off the road. Once we are out touring with the music for this new record, then I can think about writing some new music, probably within the next month or so.
He's a busy man. He's a
Yeah.
great jazz guitarist. If you ever get the chance and he's in your area, go check him out.
Yeah,
He
thank
puts
you.
on a good show, and pick up his CDs. I don't get a dime for this. He's just a friend of mine, and I love his music, and I'd love to promote it in any way I can.
Or you
Neil,
can tell him to go to Nils Music, nilsmusic.com, and all the links to my shows, and they can listen to the albums on the website. There's a store page, and it's like an old school record store where you're able to listen to all the music, not just 10 seconds of it. So you can listen to the albums on my website, and if you like it, download a copy, or order an autographed copy if you prefer.
I miss those days when you could go to Tower Records and listen to the new Led
They put the
Zeppelin
album
album
on
or
for you.
whatever.
Right now, we're
Yeah,
really dating ourselves. Yeah, we
yeah,
were grew
we're
up in the
all.
days of vinyl. Yeah,
Well, here's the thing: we're all old, but you know what? I wouldn't change growing up when we did for anything because we
no,
had arguably the best music ever. I
I think
mean,
so.
come on.
And it was the most important part in our lives.
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
I mean, it was everything was, and the one thing that I noticed changing when we changed over the CDs is the respect for the medium declined. Meaning, like, when you had vinyl records, you had to be careful not to scratch them up.
Mhm.
And some of my friends were very anal about, oh, no, only I can put the record on the turntable, and it has to go right after it got to go back into the sleeve, and all that stuff, and handled with care, and now CDs, like, I noticed even after a couple of years, I mean, the things were empty. CD was laying around somewhere in a pile of others, and then you have to file through. um And these days, even more, people getting away from CDs. It's only virtual downloads or streaming lists and all that kind of stuff. So, but I do believe there's an importance in doing albums rather than just individual songs and have them streamed, because you can be more creative on an album. You can show other sides of yourself that might not fit in that short radio is very restrictive. The songs cannot be longer than 4 minutes or 3:45 ideally. They have to be, a certain vibe, and to fit that format perfectly. And if you want to have a song that's like 8 minutes long and is a little different, then you're out of luck. It never gets played, but on an album. So, and if you do records right, so you have a whole listening experience from the beginning to the end through, then it becomes a whole nother experience.
We lost a great man last year, Jim Ladd, who he did headsets when he was on KMET and on Sirius XM, and the man knew how to mix music, and that's a lost art now. Music today, as opposed to when we grew up, I'm tired of the computer shit. I want to see somebody play. I want to hear the bass. I want to hear the drums. I want to hear the singer. And maybe throw.
Yeah, live. I don't like the synchronized swimming on stage thing. I like to sing like a singer, a band. Let them play. Let them perform their song. I don't need like you never see the bands. You see an artist, and then there's some background singers doing the dancing around, and it's like, where's the band? Where's the guitar player? Where's the bass player? I want to see the drummer. I grew up with that kind of stuff, and that's what I enjoy.
I like something that Joe Walsh said. It was that, he doesn't want music to be perfect. It's not meant to be perfect. You play it, and it's got to have its own sound to it. Every time you play it, it's going to be a little bit different. You get a little something else out of it. And that's really one of the great things about music in my mind as well.
Yeah, it's alive, it's not two performances are alike.
Right.
Well, like A Song Remains the Same, the movie by Zeppelin. I mean, when they start out with rock and roll, you can hear Bonzo going, "Let's go," and he starts off with the drumming, the drumming part, and all of a sudden they explode, and it's like you get that rush when it happens, and you're like, "Wow." And they are probably the kings of improvisation when they were playing live, because Bonzo would look at Jonesy and Jimmy would look at those two, and they know where they were going, and I'm like, how the hell do they do that? But they were
that's
tight.
a good rhythm section. That's what a good rhythm section are.
Yeah. I don't think you could find a better rhythm section than those two. Maybe Ged and Neil Peart was Rush. But I mean, and that's another band. When they first got together, they asked the question, "Did you guys know when you first got together in some small basement in London?" And they said, "Oh yeah, we knew. We knew immediately."
Yeah, you feel it. You feel absolutely. I mean, I played with, in my genre, a lot of times when I travel on the East Coast, there's not enough budget there if you're just playing a club to bring my LA band to the East Coast. So use local musicians. Maybe I can bring Clydeen and Oliver, but then I use a local bass and drums, that kind of stuff. And then sometimes we play with players and they're okay. And then other times we just look at each other. Oh yeah, these guys really are locking into it. And you kind of, there's this musical connections. Like I said, with Clydeen and Oliver, there was just a certain, we understood each other musically. It's hard to put your finger on exactly. It's music is a language that gets transmitted through sound. That's what makes it universal. You don't, you can break all kind of nationalities and language barriers because people understand, they get the emotion of music. And if you have some musicians that connect there, you feel it. You absolutely feel it.
I listened to an interview with Tom Dowd, the legendary producer who produced the Allman Brothers, Leonard Skinner, and everybody. And he was doing the sessions for Layla and other assorted love songs by Derek and the Dominoes. And Eric and I think Carl Radle went down to see the Allman Brothers play in Miami. And they invited Dwayne back to the studio. And Tom Dowd said, "I've never seen anything like it. They didn't talk to each other, just with their instruments." And you know, Layla was supposed to be a slow ballad like the unplugged version, and Dwayne sped it up, and boom, it exploded. And Tom Dowd said, "I've never seen anything like it." They barely said each other, but they were talking with their instruments. Like you said, it's the magic there that you can't explain it. It just happens, and you
Yeah.
know, it's your music got me through my illness in December when I was paralyzed for a while, and you know, I put my headphones
I'm so
on.
glad you're doing better, man. I'm really happy for you. I'm
I
so
appreciate that. I got to get up there and dance. You know, maybe Maddie can give me some dancing lessons or something. I think you and I both need him from your daughter.
yeah, from that
But
was the youngest generation definitely has honors, you know.
yeah, well, I am
They'll
getting
try to
better.
keep up.
I am getting better, Nils. I'm walking a lot now, and you
Good.
know, I'm getting back to normal, which scared me for a little bit. You know,
Yeah. Well,
but I appreciate all the kind words and the thoughts. It really means a lot. But Nils, we're gonna let you go because I know you're a busy man. You got
yeah.
things to do. Again, as always, it's great talking to you, buddy, and I'm looking forward to seeing you real soon on the road. I'll let you know when I'm in the area, and we'll have lunch, and we'll get to see you in a gig.
Yeah,
Rick,
and again, you know, check for anybody watching this, check me out on nilsmusic.com or on my YouTube channel, Facebook channel. They're both are Nils Guitar, Nils Guitar, one word. You find me on YouTube and on Facebook, and then check out what I have to offer. I have a whole channel of stuff up there, so you can get to know me that way.
Fantastic.
Rick, you have any other questions for Nils?
All set. Let him go. We've had him for an hour here.
All right. Yeah, I gotta go over to the record label now and then have a meeting with them. Okay, thank you guys. You have a
Nils,
great day, and
thank
thanks
you
for having me on.
thanks for coming, Nils, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks, buddy.
Peace. Bye.
Okay, guys, we'll see you next time on In the Clubhouse. Thank you. Bye-bye. Whoops.
All right.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that was great, Nils. I appreciate
Oh.
that.